If you stop eating, your body eventually shuts down. To understand why, think of your body as a traditional sagiri. Inside your cells, the food you eat acts just like that charcoal. The oxygen you breathe is the air that fuels the fire. The resulting product is the energy your body requires to survive. Many people confuse this energy release with breathing. Breathing is strictly the physical act of moving air in and out of your lungs. Respiration is the unseen chemical process happening deep inside your cells to break down that food. Mastering how this internal cellular power plant operates explains exactly how organisms manage to perform every action, from sitting quietly at a desk to running a marathon. When you take a deep breath, you provide your cells with plenty of oxygen. This sets off aerobic respiration, the primary and most efficient method to extract energy from glucose. Every cow in the field and every person walking through a cold, misty morning in Kabale relies on this continuous aerobic process. It creates the internal heat needed to maintain body temperature and fuels daily muscle movement. The chemistry is simple. Glucose combines with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide, water, and 38 ATP molecules of energy. For exams, remember GOWCE. Glucose plus oxygen yields water, carbon dioxide, and energy. Yielding 38 packets of ATP from a single molecule of glucose is the highest return on investment a cell can achieve. This massive yield provides the sustained, reliable power required for complex life to thrive. But biological systems face absolute physical limits. When you push your body during a heavy sprint, your lungs cannot deliver oxygen fast enough to match the demand. To survive this temporary oxygen debt, your cells trigger an emergency backup system called anaerobic respiration. Without oxygen, the chemical pathway changes completely. The cell breaks down glucose to produce lactic acid, releasing a very small amount of energy, just 2 ATP. Notice the massive drop in efficiency. Furthermore, that newly formed lactic acid builds up rapidly in your tissue. This chemical accumulation is exactly what causes the painful cramps and heavy fatigue you feel at the end of a race. This secondary pathway keeps you moving in an emergency, but its severe inefficiency and toxic byproducts mean it can only be sustained for very brief periods. Human muscles aren't the only biological structures that operate without oxygen. Microorganisms, specifically yeast, process glucose in low-oxygen environments in a completely different way. When yeast breaks down glucose anaerobically, a process known as fermentation, the end products are ethanol, carbon dioxide, and 2 ATP. These specific chemical byproducts drive major local industries. The carbon dioxide creates the bubbles that cause dough to rise in baking, while the ethanol is the core alcohol component required for brewing local beverages. Let's test your active recall. Pause the video and write down the 2 differing end products of anaerobic respiration for a human sprinter versus a yeast cell. By identifying these divergent chemical pathways, humans are able to harness biological reactions to drive economic output and local food production. Let's apply this directly to a standard UNEB examination question. Why must a bottle of fermenting local brew be kept tightly covered in a warm, dark place? We solve this by looking at the environmental conditions. The tight cover physically blocks oxygen from entering, forcing the yeast strictly into the anaerobic fermentation pathway. Meanwhile, the warm environment ensures the enzymes facilitating this reaction operate at peak speed. To synthesize everything we've covered, let's look at a complete breakdown comparing the primary aerobic pathway against the emergency anaerobic pathways. The most critical metric to memorize is the energy yield, 38 ATP with oxygen versus just 2 ATP without it. You must also distinguish the final outputs, lactic acid in animals compared to ethanol and carbon dioxide in yeast. Whether you are sprinting to catch a bus, baking bread, or simply sleeping, the specific chemical tools your cells use to break down glucose dictate the physical limits of life itself.